We welcome you back to the Centre for Christian Spirituality and our reflection on this Sunday's Gospel, the Gospel for the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Let's take a moment to hear the words of the Gospel of this day.
He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I give 1/10 of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted.
I believe that the best way to understand this parable is to focus on the opening words. That Jesus is speaking to people who think they are virtuous and are convinced of it, and convinced that they're better than everybody else, and that they are quite judgmental about it. The person that comes to mind is the elder brother in the story of the prodigal. Right? He stayed home and did everything that he should have done, but in the end he was left out in the cold. And I think the message that's coming through here is the same, that we don't go to God as people who have done all sorts of things and therefore we want our reward. That basically we go to God trusting in God. We do have things that we need to do in relationship to God, and we should do them. But that is not the basis of our salvation. Our salvation is humbling ourselves and putting ourselves in the mercy of God. There's another story in Luke where it talks about a servant who works in the fields all day. When he comes in, the master doesn't say, sit down, I'll get your meal. No, the servant gets the meal. And Jesus draws from that, when we have done all that we should do, we should say, I am an unworthy servant. So it's humility before God is the way we relate to God, not going to God like a banker expecting to pick up interest, or a person that's going along to get the reward for all that they have done.
David, thank you for the sharing that you do with us each week and providing that context. And often I feel that after hearing what you've got to say, I need to go back and rethink what it is that my response to hearing the word has been in the first instance. Because with this particular gospel piece, I see 2 people who are doing initially the same thing, going to the temple to pray. But that act of praying, it's almost like diverges into 2 different roads that comes from the understanding that each brings to who God is for them. One who seems to be caught up in all the niceties of the law, and the other who really takes on board that which Jesus in his own life is preaching about the love of God, and who accepts and embraces that love of God that comes from a renewed and deepened understanding of who God is. A little bit like the iceberg, that we see the way in which we function externally from that top piece, but underneath the water is so much that has conditioned us to our understanding. And it just seems to me of that operating in my life, operating here in the 2 people, the Pharisee and the tax collector.
I think this is such a rich moment in the scripture, and I think it's about maturity as an adult Christian, because in my own life I think I look at those people who admit they're sinners, admit they're not perfect, they don't stand on their own righteousness. Those people are adorable, and I love being around those people. So there's something about when people can come to a true understanding of their identity as a sinner in need of God's help. I think those people are the adorable people that I want to be around. The other sort who think they've got all the answers and they're holier than thou, I think they end up very isolated.
Yes.
And I think this passage, that it doesn't necessarily say it, but that humility, or that desire of humility, or that desire to say it's about God, not about me, makes humanity wonderful.
Yes.
And I think it's beautiful.
I think it is about maturity, because we all start off doing the things that we've been raised to do.
Yeah.
And maturity is about continuing to do them, but to do them from a deeper attitude, to do them from the heart, and that means that that we are humbling ourselves before God. Yes.
Yeah.
We invite you now to look at the Gospel and to just draw out the things that you consider to be important. And now we invite you, in the light of your considerations and ours, to listen to the reading again. Jesus told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I give 1/10 of all my income. I fast twice a week. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. We would like to share with you now how we ourselves have tried to make this gospel a part of our life. The reading is not really complete until what is in the text has become a part of our heart as well.
A big challenge for me from the gospel is to be really clear in my own mind, at least at this moment in time, who God is for me. And in the light of that, I believe that that will help me to understand who I am, and so be able to respond accordingly. So for me, that's the challenge for this week.
For me this week, I feel like this passage is a little bit like a squeeze of lemon in the mouth, because, ricochets. And I think for me it will be about keeping the focus on me and what I'm doing, and to check my heart and where I am, rather than letting it stray off and trying to judge everyone else around me and what they're doing or what they're not doing. So it'll be keep the focus on me, what's in my heart.
Yes, I thought of that great spiritual principle, mind your own business. We're not here to judge others unless we have a role that puts them in our care. But basically, we should look at ourselves, not be judging others. And I think that I'm a person that does a lot of external good things because of the role that I have. But I think that we can just lean on that and not come to that deeper throwing ourselves at the feet of the Lord. So I would like to just reflect on what I'm doing and just make sure I'm looking at how I'm responding to God, not how other people are responding to God. We invite you now to make an application of your own. Take the scriptures and bring it into your heart by choosing something practical that you can do. Thank you for being with us again, and we hope that we will see you again next week. We would like to conclude with a moment of prayer, and I would like to read for you, or pray with you, the prayer from the 30th Sunday of the year liturgy. Almighty, ever-living God, increase our faith, hope, and charity, and make us love what you command, so that we may merit what you promise, through Christ our Lord.